Well, it's time to say goodbye to the Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy, and hello to a new trilogy, or at least that's what they're calling it. I don't know if the whole line's gonna be called Legacy, but for right now, it's called Legacy. Hello, what's up? I'm Brian here, doing another video for you guys, and this time, I'm just talking about Legacy and how I feel about it overall. If it's good, if it's bad, if it's meh, we'll figure it out for ourselves. Now, some people are going to disagree with my feelings about Legacy, and that's totally fine. Go ahead and comment what you think about the whole line. I'm mostly gonna center the focus on Wave 1 and some little bits that are early on with the series. God, we've been in Generations for so long. Does anyone remember when the Movieverse line was not part of Generations? The title Generations just kind of seeped into everything that collectors kind of wanted. Or at least Hasbro was like, you want this! Now, there were certain things being introduced in Generations as a theme, like Combiner Wars, it had Combiners. Titans Returns, it had Headmasters. Power of the Primes. Nobody really knows. But then we moved on to the War for Cybertron trilogy, and that's when things got wicked. In Power of the Primes, things started to decline in quality, but then Siege just happened and it exploded. Not only that, some of the designs were incredible. They were trying to go for a more Cybertronian design, and some did it better than others, but it was interesting. I mean, if you look at the Hound, that's a pretty cool looking Hound. But then Earthrise happened and the interest kind of declined. I don't want to say it completely ruined everything, but it wasn't as flashy as Siege. Then Kingdom happened and we had Beast Wars characters, and that was exciting again. Sure, some figures are hit and miss, but honestly, I'll take it over nothing. But then Legacy happened, which is a completely new toy line compared to the War for Cybertron, even though it has a lot of the gimmicks and articulation, but something about it just feels just like it's missing something. That is actually the point of this video. So first, before we talk about that, I'm gonna analyze some of the early figures. Starting with the core class, continuing from the Kingdom lineup. So Hot Rod's an interesting one, starting off with the core class, because when he was introduced, he had something that felt like it was going to be part of a further gimmick, and that was the sword. Now, I'm curious to see if any other Legacy wave of core class figures are going to do the same thing. I believe that there's going to be a G2 version of Megatron, which is probably going to be a repaint of this, and there's some connection points with the gun, so maybe they'll include that. But with Hot Rod, what's interesting about this is when you go back to the Kingdom line, there was a Rodimus, but there wasn't a Hot Rod. But there was a Studio Series Hot Rod that was pretty much the counter to this. But what's cool about this is we already had a Rodimus even before that with the Combiner Wars, so it's kind of funny with that. Anyways, so yes, this Hot Rod, I'm not sure how I feel about it. It kind of feels a little too simple because it's missing some of the paint applications. Like, it's missing some of the black in the legs, and just overall, it just kind of feels dull. I like the shaping of it, but that is pretty much it. And I like the head sculpt. I like the sword in general. I think it's a neat weapon, although I think he should have come with the gun instead. But considering what's going on with the core class lineup, at least this first wave, I understand it, and I'm fine with it. I got a lot of figures to compare, so I'm just gonna keep adding them in the corner. Alright, so the funny thing about Hot Rod and Skywarp being introduced in the first wave is that when you go back to the Combiner Wars Legends, they also shared a wave. This is the Skywarp, which is obviously going to be a repaint of the Kingdom version of the core class Starscream. It's no surprise there. The biggest surprise is, where's the Thundercracker? Now, I think the colors are fine, even though I still feel like the waist needs some paint. But the problem that I have with this, even though I expect this figure to come out and I'm gonna buy it anyway, so it's whatever, is the weapon. It's this clamp thing, which is meant to attach to the sword like we mentioned, but the problem with that is it replaced the null race instead of just adding with the figure itself. Now, it's not the biggest deal for me because I got null ray weapons with the original Combiner Wars figure, but it is definitely something that I felt is incredibly missing with this figure. It's like Megatron without his fusion cannon, or Optimus Prime without saying I'm Optimus Prime. Coming with the third piece of the weapon is Iguanus. Now, this is based on a Pretender shell, but instead of him coming with the shell, it's just going to be the actual shell as the Transformer itself, and he's going to transform into that bike form that we saw the core figure come with. Hey, core class, now I get it. Oh, okay. Anyways, again, he comes with the third piece of the weapon, and what I'll say about this is I like the idea of it, but it is definitely weird, so I don't mind him being a core class figure as opposed to a Deluxe or a Voyager. Actually, that kind of makes more sense to me. If he's going to be a pretender, then maybe he'll disguise or be in the same kind of height as Spike Witwicky, which is also coming out in the core class lineup, so maybe it makes sense with that. But I like the color scheme. I actually kind of like the idea that they're using the Pretender as the robot, and you can see that the kibble comes off to the side, almost like that is going to be some sort of attachment or backpack that he's going to convert from to make the alt mode. So maybe that's an interesting thought there. I will say I'm into it because I like the core class line, so no problem with that. Why does Skids work and not work at the same time? He feels like he should be a very dull figure, but I think the reason why Skids work is because he's essentially what Generation 1 is all about. He's a boxy transformer that transforms into a little car, and it's a neat little car, but then you get to the robot mode and it explodes with weapons and accessories, but you still get the vibe of the original vehicle form, which I feel like some of the Michael Bay film and the designs from those films kind of missed out on, like Age of Extinction, where you can't even see the parts of the Camaro from Bumblebee. You can't even tell if it's in his chest or in his shoulders. So I like that charm about this figure overall, and I think he does look pretty decent. I like the dark blue color scheme. I like the shape of it's almost like a Honda City Turbo, if I'm not mistaken. And the one thing I'm not sure about is the gun, the extra gun, the Energon weapon. It just seems like a random inclusion that they're bringing in that I feel doesn't need to be brought in. But he does have the proper accessories. You know, he's got the laser pistol and then the arm gun, so that's cool. I think he's definitely on the top of my list for figures to get, and he's been climbing up ever since. Alright, so next up is Arcee, and this one I'm kind of disappointed by because I thought, oh, they're doing the Prime design? I wonder how these are going to look with some improvements in the modern day, maybe some ankle tilt or specified details that actually look proper. Nope, they just went with a different direction, and this is a more Generations style or Generation 1 style version of Arcee. And I kind of understand why they decided to do that, because some people have been curious on some of the characters if they were drawn into Generations. I mean, it worked with the Lugnut and revealed the shields, and personally I think the Bulkhead works, but we're going to talk about that later on. But for Arcee, it doesn't really work, and I think the biggest disappointment about this is when you look at some of the other figures like the Kingdom line, they look for the most part like they're Beast Wars incarnations. So when Prime was being introduced, people thought, okay, it's going to be the same thing, and that's not the case. They have much more bulkier, boxier designs. And for some parts, it does work. I think the bike mode for Arcee works, but then you get to the robot mode, and I'm not feeling it, especially the way the wheels are just tacked on the sides. I don't like the weapons at all. I don't care whoever says, oh, well, the arm blades are the exact same thing from the original design. It's not really. It's more like an Energon blade weapon. Yeah, I guess it's kind of a reference, but it just doesn't really get the same vibe. And then the drone piece doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it makes sense on the fact that it's going to be a repaint later down the road, but as far as this design is concerned, it does not work for the overall toy. The head sculpt I've been more interested in, but other than that, yeah, this one just doesn't really nail it. However, I will say, it's a lot better than this. I wanted to get a Dragstrip, but he's already combined with my Stunticon, so I didn't really want to take that off. But we're going to talk about this new version of Dragstrip, which I'm actually very excited for. The Legacy line, by the way, has not shown up in my area. I have not been able to get any of the figures, but Dragstrip is definitely at the top there. I will say also Transformers Prime Arcee, but mostly because it's Prime Arcee and I like that. But other than that, definitely Dragstrip. I'm so impressed with the design. I like that they're going for a more classic style, you know, with the blocky yellow aesthetic, and I love the head sculpt on this. I also love the fact that he's got 6 wheels this time around. I also like the fact that they don't just import Energon weapons to every figure if they don't feel like they need it. You know, he's got 2 blaster weapons, and that's perfectly fine. Why does he need more? And yes, of course, this is going to continue off with the rest of the Stunticons. Now, it seems like we're going to get 1 Stunticon per wave in the Deluxe class lineup, and then the Commander class is going to be the Motormaster, which is a little disappointing. I feel like Motormaster is going to be the easiest one to get, but the issue with that is I feel like it's going to be a lot harder with some of the waves and distribution to get the rest of the figures, and that's why I'm a little hesitant about getting them. I'm still going to get Dragstrip as soon as I can so that I can make sure that if I do go full out with the Stunticons, at least I have that. But hearing about the fact that Breakdown is going to be the only one in that wave that's a new figure, and the rest of them is going to be just re-releases, that kinda has me off guard. But as far as Dragstrip is concerned, if anything else is like this, then I'm on board. I got a question for you. Do you feel like the Legends Kickback is a little too small? Well, here you go. Here's the Legacy one. Deluxe class Kickback is kind of impressive and just kind of boring at the same time. I don't know what to say. The weird thing about Legacy Deluxe class Kickback is he's essentially what he's supposed to be and boring at the same time. I mean, he pretty much nails the bug mode, he nails the robot mode, but the transformation getting into one mode and the other, and just the fact that there's not much going on, just kind of makes Kickback feel bland, which is kind of weird because I always like Kickback the most out of any of the Insecticons. But I will say that he's a deluxe class version of it, so I'm a little excited about that. You get a little bit more details, or a little more defined details. I actually like the bladed weapons this time around, and he does come with that minigun, which I really do like. So I'm still into it, but it's just weird how bland it feels. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to get the Blaster soon, because he is a good-looking figure. Some people have already reviewed it with the Kingdom lineup, and of course Legacy is releasing in some areas, so people have managed to get him. And the only Blaster that I've been able to get is this one. So I think I'm in desperate need for a new Blaster. The G1 aesthetic of this design alone has got me on board. I don't even mind the fact that Eject just looks like a crystal block. Honestly, I feel like that's okay, especially considering what he comes with, the Blaster figure. I mean, look at the aesthetic of him, the colors, the weapon, even the weapon. It just looks really good, so I think they're on point with this one. What else can I say? So I was watching a review a while back talking about the Legacy Bulkhead. I can't remember exactly who did it, and I'll try to link it down in the description whenever I can figure it out. But I always felt put off with the Bulkhead design. I felt like the chest was a little too cubic and just didn't really fit his overall design. I mean, yeah, it's Bulkhead, but when you take a look at the rest of the proportions, it doesn't really flow naturally with the look. And I think what he said was, it's more or less the animated Bulkhead, because when you compare the alt modes between each of them, he actually resembles more the animated look than he does the Prime look, which is kind of weird. Now, I do love Prime Bulkhead, and I'm glad that we're getting a Generations version of this, because I want to pair this off with the Revealed the Shields Lugnut. I think that would be pretty awesome. But I can't lie and say that I just feel put off with the way they're handling some of the Prime characters. I would have much rather these just go ahead and just take full inspiration of the Prime designs. But I think for Bulkhead, because I've always been curious on a Generations Bulkhead to begin with, I'm fine with it. I love the Wrecking Ball. I think that's awesome. I even like the minigun on the shoulder, even though that's kind of a weird weapon. I think it's fine. And I was not into that Riot Shield until I realized that, yes, you can still transform him with that. And not only that, I'm just digging it now. I think it looks pretty cool for him. So yeah, Bulkhead is just a mixed bag. It's just kind of how I feel at the moment. I need a Galvatron. Something better than this. Face sucks. So if you have the Kingdom Galvatron, then good. You're already pretty much ahead of me. But the Legacy version apparently has no paint markings. So the blue markings that are on the arms and on the chest, yeah, that's completely gone. And some people are upset because, oh, they think Hasbro was just scamming them for money for a later release. And what I think just happened was people complained about that, so that for the follow-up release they just changed it, and that's pretty much it. You know, not really much more into it. I don't think there's a whole conspiracy on that. But yeah, it's basically Kingdom Galvatron. I don't know what else to say about it. Okay, my question to you, are they ever going to retire any of the parts from this thing? Legacy Leader Class Laser Optimus Prime. And ooh, I'm so happy that it's the Laser Optimus Prime, even though I'm pretty sure a lot of people want the Armada one. I will admit I got the Deluxe class version, but he's looking a little short nowadays, and also, I just don't like the transformation. I feel like he's going to crack at any moment, especially with the hands and the sword. It's just... I don't know how to feel about it. Honestly, I like the trailer, I like the alt mode, I love the robot mode, even though I feel like it needs a little more color in the legs. I don't care if it's a nod to the original, I just feel like there needs to be a hint of a little bit more blue. The weapons are okay, but I do like the sword. Let me tell you the main reason why I want this. This guy needs to fight someone. So the one with blue is Silverstreak, and the one with silver is Bluestreak. That's like an Iceland-Greenland type of thing. As a bonus, with the Buzzworthy Bumblebee lineup, we also have this Silverstreak figure, which is based on a Diaclone repaint, and it's kind of weird because it doesn't really associate with Bumblebee, but I think all the Target exclusives are just Buzzworthy Bumblebee, so let's just live with it. This is the first Legacy exclusive in the Buzzworthy Bumblebee lineup, and I gotta say, I really dig the color scheme. I've always loved this deco for the Dodson brothers. The dark blue with the gray on top, just, I don't know, something about it, just, it's so nice. And I have made a deal to get it. Yay! So one cool thing I will give the Legacy lineup is that they're doing so many broad figures that how are you going to make the Selects line more relevant? And it seems like what they're going to do is Diaclone repaints, because from what we could tell, that's mostly what we are going to get. Now, of course, there's going to be the offhand different thing going on, but I think for the most part, it's going to be Diaclone repaints, and I'm on board with it. I'm totally fine with it. So the first thing we've got is Black Zarak, which is going to be a repaint of Scorpknock. And I don't have Scorpknock, so it would be cool to get Black Zarak. It's funny, too, because this is actually the first Legacy reveal before we even knew about Legacy, and it's a Titan class figure out of all things, but it does look good with black and gold. It's basically Hoist, but red, in case you were curious. It looks good, I'll give it that. Okay, so we've seen the Generations Ironhide in movie colors. Can we get the movie figures in Generations colors? Because I would love that. Also, this guy didn't even bother getting a name. He was like, I don't need that. Alright, so Legacy also has Walmart exclusives coming out. It's like a Beast Wave, so this is a quick rundown on that. Buzzsaw is just a repaint of this, and I'm totally fine with it. It's got the robot head, so that's kind of cool. I don't care how many times they repaint this, I want them all. Sandstorm, again, carrying a different form, is just a peach-colored version of this with a cone-shaped head. Yeah, I'm into it. Alright, so this is gonna sound weird, even though it's just a repaint of Cheetor, which some people like and some people don't like. Nightprowler is the one that I'm really excited for out of these three figures. Now, let me explain. It's mostly because this is an unreleased figure that I've known about for a long time. In fact, when I was doing the Papercraft figures, I did a Papercraft version of Nightprowler, and apparently he's missing an arm, so I gotta find that. But yeah, I'm on board with Nightprowler all the way. Alright, so that took way too long. Let's talk about the main subject itself. So we've taken a look at all the Legacy figures that are up and coming, or released for some people. Why do I feel like Legacy is just not as exciting as Siege or Kingdom or even Earthrise to a degree? Well, I think it all boils down to is there's just nothing that's really particularly new about Legacy. When you compare it to Siege, that was brand new. It brought out the new articulation and this Cybertronian alt form. It was exciting. When you brought in Earthrise, the one thing that's thrilling about that is, with a lot of the characters, they got their more Generation 1 looks, like Optimus Prime, or Grapple, or Sideswipe, or whoever else. And then with Kingdom, you continued that. But not only that, you also had the Beast Wars characters that were brought out as a highlight of the line, because usually we had sprinkles of Beast Wars, but now it's the big thing. What's the big thing about Legacy? It's different because it goes through different lines, but with the previous series, we also kind of had that already. So what's the big thing about Legacy is that it goes through different lines more so than the previous series, but when you take a look at what they were doing, They were already kind of doing that. Let's take, for example, there was the Galaxy upgrade Optimus Prime and the Hotshot that was based on Cybertron. So the Unicron trilogy, apparently in Legacy, we're getting a Starscream, we're getting a Metroplex, that is all based on the Cybertron and Armada series, Unicron trilogy. So we already kind of had that. We had some Diaclone repaints, I'm sure of it. Or at the very least, those Diaclone repaints are based on figures that we already had in Siege and Earthrise and Kingdom. And then when you take a look at some of the other figures, they have Generations figures beforehand, like the Optimus Prime, the laser figure, I just showed that. Arcee you can get from the Prime series. Bulkhead you could get from the Prime series. Dragstrip had a figure in Combiner Wars. So I just don't think that it really put itself on the map as much as some of the other lines. It didn't feel like it was a game changer as much as something else. I mean, even with Skids, he's just a boxy form of an Autobot that kind of feels like he's just left out to take from the scraps. When I looked at Kickback recently, I realized that Kickback is essentially what Legacy has as a problem. When I took a look at Kickback, I realized what the issue was, is that Kickback does look pretty good. He has that modern articulation, which is really nice, but when it all boils down to it, it's not that thrilling. It doesn't do anything new. But then again, is that really necessarily a bad thing? I think that's the main reason why there's no hype behind it, but I don't think that necessarily means that the Legacy line is necessarily bad. I think it's just more so that it has a new title, but it's just continuing from what we already know. Yeah, it's doing something different with the Prime series, but the Prime series stuff is more so being drawn into what Legacy is already doing. To be honest with you, I'm excited for what's coming out in the future of Legacy more so than what we have now, because like I said, we're getting a Metroplex, we're getting an Armada Starscream, we're getting a Motormaster, and I'm curious to see how that will combine with everyone. So even though the hype isn't necessarily there, it's not really gonna ruin Generations for me. I mean, hell, I love the War for Cybertron line, so if we're getting the same stuff just in a different title, I'm not gonna complain about that. I don't know, what do you guys think about Legacy? Please comment below, let me know, because I feel like this should be a big discussion. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and all those fun doodads, and I will see you guys next time.
I think the Transformers Legacy is one of those lines that starts off kind of decent but gets better as the years go by. And if there's one figure that proves that, it's the fact that Dragstrip makes me tenderly caress my balls each night. Don't tell anyone I said that.
The start of Legacy, I feel, is pretty good. The figures are decent, and I think in the future the line could have some pretty good potential.
Hey yo, it's JJ Prime here, and since I got the majority of the first wave of Legacy Wave 1, I would like to say this. Each figure in the wave is really cool, really great, really fun to mess with. For example, Prime Universe Bulkhead is a great toy, fun engineering, great toy. This is an amazing toy right here, so. And I can't wait to see what else Hasbro's going to put out for this Legacy toy line, so hooray!
I think so far Legacy's actually been pretty damn good, especially with the figures, you know, their detail and design. But I think going forward, I would love to see a bit more variety with the stuff we're getting. Bit less G1, bit more crazy stuff. But overall, Legacy is shaping up to be even better than WFC.
My first impression of Legacy came in the form of Bulkhead, who is one of the best first impressions of any line I've had. Period.
Hey guys, this is Thanatos Prime here, and I just want to say I am loving this Legacy line so far. The figures are very well built, they're very sturdy. I am a little concerned about the use of clear plastic, but overall I'm very excited for the line, especially that new Menasor figure, and I just want to see more reveals, and I'm excited to see where this line is going to go in the future.
So, Transformers Legacy then. Seems pretty cool, doesn't it? I like the variation of characters, like animated stuff, and characters like Skids that we don't ever usually get. And I really like the translucent weapons. Kind of reminds me of Power Core Combiner minicons, and I always kind of liked those.
My first impressions of Legacy is that it is going to be a great toy line, at least from these two. The plastic feels dense, heavy, and nothing feels like it's going to break, which I appreciate given the price increase.
My opinion on Legacy is it's good, it's great. Bulkhead and Arcee look a bit iffy, Skids looks brilliant, and the combiners are a bit early, but all in all, looks good.
I'm really excited to see the different Transformers Prime characters in Legacy, more than anything, I think, just because the fact that they're mixing it with the G1 look, I think that's going to be really cool, and it will blend in with like the War for Cybertron figures more than, say, the first edition figures would. So I'm really excited to see the upcoming figures they have planned.
I admit that I was a little iffy going into this line, but I gotta say, these figures are surprisingly good. They have good posability, the joints are nice and tight, and they feel pretty sturdy. There may be some stuff I'm iffy about, but I'm looking forward to this line.
Legacy, it's pretty bland. Not gonna lie, except for Iguanus and Kickback. Those are probably the only two I'm probably gonna get. Well, if the leak listings are correct, I'm really excited for the rest though, because we are going to get some really good figures, like Inferno and Tarantulas, Dragon Megatron. Like, it looks promising.
Legacy started as a great line. We've seen figures that we have never seen for a long time, such as Skids, the Insecticons, and other more figures. Plus, we're getting an entire combiner, which we have never seen since the Prime Wars trilogy. I see great potential in Legacy. I'm really looking forward to Legacy to see what comes out next.
Oh, the Transformers Legacy line wants to offer this big guy in the very beginning? I really can't wait to get my hands on the rest of the figures. Even though this is a repaint retool, the Earthrise Scorponok, I absolutely love the color scheme and this guy. Even though he has a DNA kit on him, he still pops in my collection. Can't wait for the rest of the line.
Transformers Legacy Wave 1 is fine, giving us more of what we want, updates and reinterpretations of our favorite generations characters. Hopefully, Legacy gives us good Transformers toys that happen to be long-time no-see characters. Legacy is going to be one of the Transformers toy lines ever. At this point, I wonder if Transformers even need yearly branding and trilogies, but I guess that sells.
The start of Legacy has been amazing. These are the 4 figures that I have from it, and they're just all so good. They feel amazing to like handle or whatever, and they just look great too. And I love this design for Bulkhead. So I can't wait to see what other characters from other universes come in to this line and how they change them.
Hey Brian, I think that the Legacy Wave 1 is mostly leftovers from War for Cybertron. Couple repaints, extremely good figure with Laser Prime. I just picked up Bulkhead. Let's hope it's a good one. And yeah, that's my thought on the Legacy line.
After seeing Bulkhead and Arcee, my expectations were low, but I have to admit, after seeing pictures online and reviews, my opinion has changed for good, and my expectations are really high. No sé por qué opino de esto, las figuras aún no llegan a mi país.
When it comes to Legacy, I get the unifying intent behind the non-G1 characters, but it doesn't do it for me. But I'll keep giving it the benefit of the doubt until we learn more about what's to come in the future.
I'd say this first wave of Legacy is a really solid start. All of the figures look really good, aside from Arcee. The ones I want the most are Skids and Bulkhead. Dragstrip and Kickback look pretty cool. Laser Optimus looks niche. Also Blaster is cool. But why is Eject made out of Gatorade? So I'm really looking forward to what future waves offer.
I am cautiously optimistic about Legacy. There are definitely some figures in there that I want to get, and probably some that I couldn't care less about. But I do definitely hope that they play with the idea more, and that we get maybe more than 5 waves, so that we can, you know, hopefully get some proper updated figures.
This figure is actually really cool. I actually like this thing, right? I like how there's like MIDI parts in the back, but like, yeah. I can't wait to see what I get in my next target hunt, which is actually coming up today, actually. I can't wait to get Dragstrip.
For the G1 stuff, it's good. For the not G1 stuff, it needs a bit more stylization. But then again, if it has like really accurate to the source material, for example, TFP Bulkhead, it might look out of place with the other ones.
My feelings about Legacy is realistic optimism. With only 1 wave dropped and a slew of rumors about future releases, I am hoping for the best, but not relying upon it. I anticipate the completion of my G1 and Beast Wars figure collection by the end of Legacy. Anything more would be a bonus.
I'd say it's pretty good. The only problem I had was that its head was a little loose. Transforming is pretty easy, and the underkibble of it's pretty dang minimal.
For the Legacy toy line's alright. Bloss is pretty cool. So many other stuff ain't as accurate, but it's still pretty good. As long as we get some more Beast War stuff, I'll be pretty happy.
I can't really find any flaws with a lot of these figures. I mean, yeah, some of the joint tolerances on some figures of the Wave aren't the best, but like the overall aesthetic that they're going for, the visual appearance and appeal they're going for is outstanding. Highly recommend them.
Legacy Wave 1 seems to be going back to the roots of old generations, giving us G1 characters, but also giving us characters we haven't seen in a while from other continuities like Bulkhead, G2 Laser Prime, Prime Arcee, and hopefully we get some Unicron Trilogy characters down the line, but so far this line's looking pretty good.
With the great start to Legacy so far, I can't wait for newer figures, better like the great overall plastic they're using. Obscure characters, Beast Wars, rest of the G1 cast we need. Some Armada and other homages I can't wait for as well. I'm really hyped about the 3H repaints, and yeah, I can't wait for all that.
Oh my god, by the way, look at all the figures I dragged out, and I have to put them on the shelf again.
Allspark TV, now that's just prime.